The Tom Bentey Media Podcast. I'm here with Trevor G Blake. He is a serial entrepreneur. He has a lot of great experience working with companies. He's now in the self-help space because apparently he hates the self-help space. He wants to really transform into something more authentic and more effective for people out there that are looking to really transform their business and transform their lives. So I'm really excited to have Trevor here. And let's just get right into it, Trevor. Tell me a little bit about your experience and your history and what led you up to your position today.
Okay, well, thanks, Tom. Thanks for inviting me. It's fun to be here. So I am what they call a serial entrepreneur. So I've built 7 companies, and that's not 7 out of 20, that's 7 out of 7. I currently run 4 from this place. This is my global quarters, my headquarters. And I've never hired another employee. My first 3 companies, I exited after a few years in each company for a total enterprise value of about 300 million, rising to 600 million. And I'm currently negotiating the exit of my 4th company, which will eclipse all of that. I got into the self-help personal development space back in 2012 after I sold my first company, primarily because, I've read just about everything and studied just about everything in the self-help space throughout my whole life. And it always made me feel better about my circumstances, but it didn't give me a better life. And so I wanted to provide the tools and techniques that I've learned through my, 40 years of this journey with something authentic. So there are so many self-help gurus whose only success is the fact that they're self-help guru. There's a lack of authenticity there. And with all my companies, I've said about fixing something I think needs fixing. In the self-help space, I feel that this needs fixing. So I'm an authentic guy who uses all the tools and techniques that I talk and teach about because I'm as messed up as anybody is. That's basically me.
Cool. Okay. So that's great. A couple quick questions. Where are you calling from? Where's your headquarters?
So I have a place in Seattle and a place in Newport Beach. I'm in Newport Beach, California right now.
Oh, nice. Nice. You do any surfing out there?
No, because I grew up in Liverpool where there's no water, and certainly no surfing. Or if you did surf, you'd probably die of some kind of strange disease from the toxicity. So if I had grown up here, I would be a surfer. Of that, there is no doubt. I would not be a serial entrepreneur. I would have fallen out of the system and just surfed because it's amazing. Right?
Oh yeah. I'm a big surfer. I love it. You might be familiar, but there's a big break in Newport Beach called the Wedge.
The Wedge, yeah.
Bodysurfers come from all over the world. It's this really crazy place where this wave just shoots up and dudes are just getting barreled like in this closeout wave. Not really good for surfing, but for body surfing, it's excellent.
Well, it's good for people watching from the shore in my case.
Oh, definitely. Well, that's awesome. So that's really cool. So I do have a couple more questions. Now, you have 7 companies, all very successful. And it's not like you said, it's not 20, it's 7 out of 7, which is really remarkable. I always like to talk to people about the specifics. And I know each individual case is very different and unique, but can you give us one case study of one business and what exactly the process was like to take it from the ground up to being something that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars?
Yeah, it was incredibly simple. And so it worked the first time. So I just kept repeating it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right. So it worked so well with company number 1, I just repeated. The secret to the success was the business model. I've used a hub model, or some people call it a model of alliances now. In the old days, it was called virtual, which nobody really likes anymore because it kind of it's a symbol of sort of a cowboy type company. And it's not like that at all. I'd spent in my regular career 75% of my time sitting in a meeting room talking about absolute nonsense. And I decided with my own company, I don't want any part of that in my own company. So I did away with meetings, I did away with employees, and I just went with vendors and contractors and not really knowing what I was doing. But after 3 months, I was sat in front of my computer, twiddling my thumbs, thinking, it can't be this easy. I've got nothing to do. I'll start another company. And so I started companies alongside each other, like I have 4 right now. And it's simply because the vendors and contractors know what they're doing and they don't need supervision. So I had to change my control freak nature that I learned in the corporate world from being supervisory in style to being sort of peer trust. So it requires a little shift, a little adjustment. And I have a book called Secrets to a Successful Startup, which describes that learning process, how to come up with a winning idea, react forward, and then how to structure the right way at the beginning. Because, half of all new companies fail, and they all fail for the same reason, which is bad cash flow management. And so if you set up this way, you protect so much of that wonderful, vital cash in the early couple of years while you're trying to figure out what business you're in. And so that's basically the story of all my 7 companies has come the same way. Start with a hub model, hold on to that cash like it's, well, for what it is, which is like your lifeblood. And you'll end up in a situation where you have net profits like I do of 76%.
Wow. Can you talk us a little bit more about the specifics of like what your companies are? Like,
yeah, so my first company was Quality of Life Medical, Cure Well. It still exists. You can look it up on the web. I started it with $200, sold it 6 years later for 105.5 million to one of the investors in the company, Cooper Capital. We developed drugs for rare diseases, but like all businesses, when you get into the business, you don't know what business you're in until you get in there. So we started off in that direction. And then once we were in that space, kind of a very niched space in the pharmaceutical business, all these opportunities came to us that we would never have known of otherwise. So I started purchasing the rights to some more products. So we ended up with, I think, four NDAs and nice little cash cows to help fund the growth of the main product. After that, I started a cancer drug development company, not knowing what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing, but if I have a talent, it's hiring a handful of good people and inspiring them to succeed. So we've developed a cancer drug that has no side effects and treats the most difficult type of drug-resistant cancers. So that's been a spectacular thing. I started that in 2005, and that's the one I'm negotiating to sell right now. I have a digital marketing company. I have a film production company. And also I have, obviously, my books and courses, which I do through trevorgblake.com.
Okay, wow. So a lot of things to unpack there. A lot of great things. I got a bunch of questions. The cancer drug, that's not the news that came out today about the drug that I think Sloan is doing, that they said it's really effective in putting remission. That's not you?
Yeah, be very careful of those type of news headlines. Okay, so the devil is always in the details. So I've seen those headlines and I just think, oh God, not again. Another drug that kills cancer, right? So that doesn't actually happen. The results look really promising. They're not the worst type of cancers. They're early stage cancers. They are, those patients have gone into remission for 2 years now. We don't know what the long-term effects are. It looks a really promising study, but it's only 12 patients. And it's patients with rectal cancer for which the drug is not yet approved. So it's very promising, and that will encourage a lot of experimentation, which is what we need. But the headlines don't tell the true story, so be careful with that.
Okay. And the drug that you're developing and you're working on is geared towards more aggressive cancer and stage 4 terminal cancer?
It's stage 4 terminal cancer, and it's cancers where the patient has already been treated by drugs like this one we're just talking about. That's an immunotherapy drug, a LIB, so it's a monoclonal antibody. So these patients have had monoclonal antibodies and the tumor just keeps growing. They've had chemotherapy, so tumor keeps growing. They've had surgery and radiotherapy, tumor keeps growing. Nothing works. And so we call them drug-resistant cancers. And so we came up in 2005 with a unique method of developing multifunctional drugs that overcome that resistance. And so we've given it to 30 patients in a phase 1A trial, and we have 20% remission and 70% stable disease, meaning the tumor stopped growing and shrunk, but it shrunk between 0 and 30%. So very promising results in very difficult end of life stage cancers. So.
Wow.
And the most important thing, no side effects. Why we got into it was, my mother died of cancer, and she handled the cancer with great grace, but the side effects were devastating. And so we wanted to develop something that at least didn't make quality of life diminish. And that's a great achievement, I think. The team's done a fantastic job.
That's great. Well, I wish you all the best with that. That would be amazing if it could affect and help more people. So all the best with that. Now, in terms of the film production, what are you doing there? That's my space. I'm a filmmaker. I do corporate video production, and I would love to hear your take on terms of how you can, as a little bit of a case study, like my company working with big pharmaceutical companies or trying to get into that space. And I've done stuff in tech and I've done stuff with distribution and pharma, but I'm really trying to take my company to the next level where I'm working with these big brands. But before we get into that, tell me a little bit about your film production company and what you're working on and what you've done.
Yeah, so I'm actually a screenwriter. So I won the Arizona Film Festival back in the late 80s, early 90s, and came was semi-finalist in the Colorado Film Festival, and so in those days, you know, before the advent of streaming, as you will know, that, you know, basically writers are poor, and along comes a director with some cash in his pocket, and he says, I'll option those movies. So I optioned 2 movies that went on to become blockbusters. So I got a $10,000 option, and then when they made it into the movie, I got another 10,000. So I got 40,000 in total, and I thought I'd made it, right? I thought I was some kind of genius.
What films were these?
Well, I'm not allowed to say, but you would know them. The blockbusters. They Nicolas Cage is the star in one, and that's all I think I'm allowed to say.
I think I know.
Okay.
Arizona.
So I write, all my movies have a supernatural element because I'm into energy. I'm a quantum physicist by training, and so I love to explore that, interacting with energy in a different way and multi-dimensional communication. So that you can pretty much pick up what they are at that point.
Okay.
The challenge for me was that the second one, the director that today I would say stole it from me for $20,000. You know, he won an Oscar as best for original screenwriting.
For the one for yours?
Yeah, and he didn't write a word. Now they changed some of the elements of it, but he didn't. You know, so I at that point I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I didn't. The industry is not clean, right? And it needs fixing. But now we're in a completely different world with all the streaming opportunities. It's hard to do that. It's hard to rip writers off now. And so writers finally have a bit of power. So with that knowledge, and obviously with the success of some of my other companies, I have the cash to not be optioned anymore. So I built a production company called Audrey and Linda LLC. Audrey being my mother, Linda being my wife, both of whom are deceased. And I've written their stories because their feminine energy is so inspiring, and there's such a lack of uplifting movies. So to avoid it being a vanity product, I did it under a different name. So waited till it got picked up and then came in as a producer. So now I'm a producer-writer, which is an unusual combination for a lot of people. And that's going to be great. So we're in pre-production for Audrey right now, on location in Wales. So a lot of fun. And I don't, again, like all my other companies, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm really enjoying watching the process and learning from that.
That's great, man. Well, good luck. That sounds really cool. So back in the 80s, so it's a legal agreement that you signed that you're not allowed to talk about the movies that you've optioned?
Well, I mean, I can put them out there and you can go and check them. So Sixth Sense and Ghost are the 2 movies. Everybody knows them. Mm-hmm. So, but they were typical of all movies back then in the, you know, some smart, young, starving writer put together a piece of brilliance, probably the one and only moment of brilliance in his life, like I did twice. And those were your options. You either, you know, try to beg, steal, and borrow to make it yourself, which probably isn't a good idea, or you had the movie optioned. And you know, when Amazon first got into streaming, that's how they did it. They did it. They had a full-on optioning program where everybody could send in their movies, and if they decided to keep it exclusively, you still got $10,000, and if they made it into movie, you got another $10,000. But now, you know, and that was kind of like almost like a competition. And they've stopped doing that now because 1, they get overwhelmed with rubbish scripts, mm-hmm. and 2, I think you can be legally challenged now. So it's a different world.
Yeah, I remember that. That was only like 2014, 2015. Amazon was like the place for any independent creator, and now they've really gone the other direction, and it's very stringent because, like, I think they just got so much kind of garbage movies that it wasn't viable for them.
Yeah, I mean, you know, everyone thinks they can write a movie, like everyone thinks they can write a book, and it's probably true. We all have one book in us, but there is also a lot of not very good quality material out there. So yeah, I think they made a bit of a dumb move, but they've corrected it, which is great. But all these other streaming opportunities, you know, if you have some talent, now you have a platform which is good for writers that it never didn't exist before. So.
And the one that you're making currently in pre-production, this is about what is this film about?
So it's my mother's battle with cancer. She was diagnosed. She was given 6 months to live when I was 7, and she's the subject that goes through my first book, which is 3 Simple Steps, which is about how to control mentality, how to increase intuition, and then how to use that in lifestyle. So it's the tagline is a map to success in business and life. And it's really based on all the lessons that my mother taught me, because she was this very strong, powerful spirit. And so, you know, I was there when she looked up in the sky at God and said, I'll decide when I die, not you. And she meant it. And I was so inspired by that. Whenever it, you know, it brings my feet back down to the ground when I'm in business and I think I've got an almost insurmountable problem to face. And I remember that and I think, "Oh, get on with it, Trevor. You know, this is nothing in comparison." And so those lessons that she taught me just inspired me through my whole life and gave me this feeling of, you know, what indefatigable looks like. So it's a pathos script, you know, she had a great sense of humor too. So she, through her journey of surviving cancer, she inspired so many people that living in a village of only 80 people where I grew up, 300 people came to her funeral. That's a testimony of a life well lived. And all of those people who turned up told me stories about how, unbeknownst to me as a kid, my mother had influenced their lives. I finally found out where all my missing clothes had gone, where all the food had gone off the table, you know, like, you know, I found what my mother had done with all of that to people who were worse off than us, because we were living on welfare at the time.
Wow. When you go through something like that as a child, I mean, that really must affect your worldview and your outlook on life and what's important and what's not. So even though that was such a horrible experience, I would imagine it kind of made you a better person in many respects, would you say?
Yeah, it taught me discipline, determination, and that nothing's impossible. So yeah, it was totally inspiring. I have to say, as a child, I had a great childhood. I felt like I was in Chronicles of Narnia. I didn't realize what we lived like until I left, joined the military, and then came back, and I was struck, wow, this is how we live. I hadn't seen it when I was a kid, you know, the holes in the roof and stuff like that. I just didn't notice. But these are the things we notice as adults. And then I realized how special that upbringing had been for me.
So so your mom was diagnosed, and how long did she got, the doctors gave her 6 months. How long did she end up living?
But the doctors gave her 6 months, every 6 months, and she laughed at them. So she lived until I was 21. And her last act was when I took her to the hospital for some chemotherapy to relieve the pain. She had bone cancer by then. She was in tremendous pain. And she said, "I want to introduce you to my favorite chemotherapy nurse." And then this amazing woman stepped out, and she was my wife for 40 years after that.
Oh,
So my
wow.
mother's last act was to introduce me to my wife, which was an incredible thing. And that's in the movie, obviously. It's just one of those beautiful things that I think you get to experience 1 in 20 lifetimes or something, you know.
Wow. That's really an amazing story. Are any stars attached yet, or are you just
I can't give you the names, but yes, so we have pretty much a full cast at this point, and
Great.
you would know them all.
That's great.
I'm not allowed to say, even though I'm as excited as a child at Christmas, I'm not allowed to say.
Great. That's awesome. When do you plan on filming? Soon?
We've done the pre-production filming. We did it in October. So yeah, very soon.
That's
very
great.
soon.
That's great. Well, that's really cool. Now, if we could just transition to more business practices and best steps to really take your business to a next level. If we could talk about my business for a second. So I do corporate video production. I started working with, I'm a filmmaker by trade, and then I turned that skill set to like local businesses, dentists, doctors, lawyers, and then it's grown. And I've worked with big production companies, big technology companies. I've done a little bit in pharma, but I really want to take my company to the next level. I wanted to have like very consistent strategy of working with these big companies that are in the tri-state area where I'm from, New York, New Jersey. Just using my company as a case study, what could you offer some best practice advice?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, you take it to whatever level you want in your mind first. Okay, so the imagination is the key to everything. So in 3 simple steps and secrets to a successful startup, I spend quite a bit of time talking about how to use imagination correctly. And it's not new age stuff and it's not crazy stuff. It's all scientific. Thoughts contain the energy of the neurotransmission reaction that causes them, so that you can measure the electrical charge of a thought. They're very powerful, but most people don't control them, don't manage them. They just let them go out. And, you know, people who are in debt will think about debt and they get more debt. And people who are unhappy with the relationships think about how unhappy and lonely they are, and they end up being more unhappy, more lonely. It's a very simple process if you just reverse it a little bit. So you catch yourself having these thoughts and think differently. So one of the things that I teach in my books and also my course Transformation is, or it's an experience more than a course, but transformation is the ability to imagine the future that you want experienced now. And we do it through a technique called mini mind movie. So as a movie producer, you'll be really into this, you'll get it straight away. So you produce a mini mind movie, which you use on a regular basis. And what it is what does it feel like to live a day in the life, your ideal life? What does it actually feel like? As Neville Goddard used to say in the 50s, the feeling of success is what brings success. And so using imagination with this feeling is really powerful. So you do it in your head first, and you set this intention, and then you can relax, and then you can let life fill in, most of the details. And then you open your eyes and you look for something to fix. And in your case, especially where you're located, a lot of pharmaceuticals, biotech companies up there, they're desperate for good stories. They're such an easy target for people when something goes wrong, like they've overpriced something, or they were supposed to know about side effects, but somehow didn't, which I find hard to believe. So I think they do, that their bad PR is justified in many cases, but they're just the big guys. There are hundreds of small companies run by scientists and doctors who are, desperately trying to show the world that they have something that can make a difference, who get caught up in all that negative PR with the big pharma. Good stories, fixing that is a tremendous opportunity, because I know a lot of companies, in the mid-range pharma companies, they would love a good story, a good PR campaign. Let's talk to some patients about what happened when we worked with this pharmaceutical company. It's different to what the world expects. The world all concentrates on the big CNN or Fox News headline that says pharma is dirty. And in some cases it is dirty and it's justified. But they're only, the pharma, although they have all the money, they're a tiny part of the population in pharma and biotech. So things like that. So you set your huge intention for what you want your big companies to look at, and then you look for things to fix. Because for me, winning ideas are not about just doing something you love or something you think you're good at. They're about finding things to fix, like Virgin Atlantic comes out of fixing a cancel flight problem. Netflix comes out of fixing penalties for taking a video back to Blockbusters. There was the tape wasn't rewound. The guy that built Netflix got so angry with that, he came up with a completely different system, completely different person. So you're always looking for something to fix instead of looking for something you're good at, is the secret to success in business for me. And so that would be my advice. Get it in your head first, and then look for something to fix.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. And in my research, you talk a lot about the 5-hour work week and how that can really
day. So 5-hour work day.
5-hour work day. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's important, because there are some crazy, silly books out there. The famous ones, there's multimillions that say 4-hour work week and that kind of, and that's not what they're about. It's a title to attract attention. 5-hour work day is true. So I did it when we were in COVID and we were locked down. I put out a free on trevorgblake.com for everybody, no strings attached, is the practical magic of the 5-hour work day. And it sounds a little bit new agey, but it's actually what I learned becoming as a one-man band entrepreneur. You get burned out really quickly. And so I'd be sat in front of the computer waiting for an email or waiting for the phone to go, and thinking I must be doing something wrong. And I learned that all the magical moments, all the great ideas came to me when I wasn't actually working, when I was walking my dogs or sitting at the dinner table with my wife or in the shower in the morning. And so I did some research, read a lot of scientific journals on neuroplasticity, etc. And I realized that if you schedule your day with dedicated work periods, 2 hours maximum, because the brain can't concentrate beyond 2 hours, and then dedicated relaxation periods where you go for a walk or you meditate or you take a nap, or those, and there's lots of science to back that up. Even NASA requires their pilots to nap in the afternoons, improves their work performance 34%. So all of these little powerful tools and techniques that you build into your ordinary workday, the effects of them make the productive work periods 10 times more productive than they would have been if you didn't do it. So the 5-hour workday is like, 2-hour periods of solid work, and then in between things that are much more fun, like going for a walk in the woods.
That sounds really beneficial. I mean, I know for myself, who I am a writer, and I do write, and I'm working on things right now. Like, you can't write for 6 hours, 7 hours. It has to be, for me at least, if I get 3 hours, 4 hours of writing, that's huge. That's really great. But you need that time to kind of decompress and think about what you've written and how you can make it better and improve on that. Yeah. Because it's just not, it's like there are other things other skill sets that don't require, I think, the same amount of complexity and also of just being very, very present in the moment as writing. But for writing in specific, I only can do it for a few hours at a time. And then you just have to take a break and think about it.
Yeah, and I've made the mistake of thinking I've got into the zone and I've been writing for 8 hours, and then the next day, whatever I wrote after 2 hours has gone in the trash can.
Yeah,
because it's rubbish,
it's
we
true.
we fool ourselves thinking, oh, I'm flowing, I've really nailed it, but actually it's the opposite that's happening.
For me, it's all about organization. It's about really setting an outline and then just outlining exactly what you're going to do, like understanding the flow of the project, putting it together scene by scene, and then really just fleshing that out. And then on a broader spectrum, in terms of what you're doing each day, like how I organize my day, the day before is really important, because I know exactly what I have to do. I know exactly what needs to be planned out and how to go about it. And sometimes things change. Sometimes, life happens or things get in the way. But I think organizing your day is very, very important. So you set standards for yourself, you set goals for yourself, and then you facilitate that in the best way that you possibly can.
Yeah, I do the same thing, Tom. I'm very much into lists and priorities, which I do the last thing on the day before. So, and then the next day, no electronic devices, no email, no nothing till 9 o'clock in the morning, and I get up at 6. So I have a beautiful 3-hour period where I don't engage with the, let's quote unquote, the technical world. And then when I go into my office at 9 o'clock, I do the first thing that's on the priority list, and then I'll check emails, and then I don't have social media, but then I'll do other stuff, WhatsApp or whatever.
That's great. So tell us a little bit about your any books that you have out, or anything that might be of interest to the audience.
Yeah, so 3 Simple Steps is of interest to everybody everywhere. It's done really well. I wrote it in 2012. I went with a hybrid publisher, so there was no marketing behind it. It's been a New York Times bestseller 3 times. It's in 6 languages, and that's just word of mouth, which I love that, right? That it's changed people's lives, and so a lot of people buy it for everyone they know. So that's done beautifully. And then after I sold my 3rd company, Secrets to a Successful Startup, because I see so many companies fail unnecessarily, so I wanted people to understand there's a step-by-step process of getting it right in the beginning. After that, it's up to you. After that, you fly with it, but get it right at the very beginning. And so that's what that book is about. And then I have some courses, transformation in particular, which is just huge and won all kinds of awards. It's not really a course, it's an experience. It's an immersive experience in a multi-dimensional format, which you would really enjoy, doing what you're doing with videos. It's video and audio and reading and experiencing and practicing and using and doing tools and feedback, all of a real true immersive experience, which changes people's lives in incredible ways.
And where can we find that?
So everything's at trevorgblake.com. And everything on there is authentic, because I'm in this business to try and get some authenticity back into this world, into this genre. So trevorgblake.com, and you can fall down any of the rabbit holes and have fun. There's a lot of free stuff, free podcasts, free articles. You don't have to do anything or buy anything. You can just be there, and it'll change your lives too.
Any success stories from some of the people that have taken your courses or read your book that have reached out to you?
Every single one. I have never heard anybody say, oh, it didn't work for me. Never. Then since 2012. And I had one person say, I want my money back since 2012, and they've purchased the immersive experience. And I wouldn't expect it to, because it's based on science, and you don't have to believe it. You just do it, and stuff changes. And that's as simple as it gets. So 2 of my favorite stories, recent stories, is an 87-year-old man who used to be professor of economics at North Carolina University. He sent me a beautiful email saying, somebody gave me this dumb self-help book called 3 Simple Steps, and I hate self-help books. He said, first of all, I couldn't open it because of my arthritic fingers, the box. And then he said, and then I found out it was a self-help book, and I threw it in the trash can, but it fell open and something caught my eye, and I started reading it, and it changed his life completely. And at 87 years old, he started his first company, a company he'd been putting off for 30 years. And now he's like 20 years younger in his mannerisms and everything. He's having the time of his life. So that's one of my favorites. And the opposite end of the scale was a 13-year-old girl in Sri Lanka who somehow found 3 Simple Steps. I never found out how she got it. I hope it wasn't in a dumpster or something. But she found 3 Simple Steps, and she was working in a sweatshop, and all she wanted to do was dance. And now she's a trainee at the Royal Ballet in London. And that's all down to just following those 3 steps with a sense of discipline. They're so simple. That's why I call them 3 Simple Steps. They're not easy, because you have to change your lifestyle a bit, but they're simple. and anyone can use them. So yeah, I mean, it's just hundreds of stories like that. I got a guy I'm talking to in the next hour who's living in Norway now, but was in America, was in the corporate world, was up to his eyes in debt, just signed a $250 million deal. 18 months from finding 3 simple steps, joining the immersive course, to this lifestyle change. I love stories like that.
That's a great story. Well, thanks so much, Trevor. I mean, a lot of great insight for the audience here today. I really appreciate your time and everything that you're doing in the all the different companies that you've worked with, and how you're helping people and really bringing authenticity into that self-help space, like you said. So it sounds like some really great things are going on. I'm definitely going to check out your book. Is it, you said it's on the website. Is it is it on Audible too, or just?
Yeah, it's in every format, pretty much most languages.
Great.
And yeah, just go to trevorgblake.com. There's a lot of access you can read for free. I don't do this for the money, by the way, folks. I do it because it's the right thing to do. All my proceeds in anything, books or courses, goes to cancer research and development. So that's why I'm really happy promoting it and talking about it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Trevor. I really appreciate your time, and all the best with everything you're working on.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. And thanks for the questions.